Addiction is not just a battle in the body, it's a battle in the mind and relationships. Whether it's drugs, pornography, gaming, or any other compulsive habit, the way we communicate with someone who is struggling can either push them further into silence or open the door to healing. In this video, we'll explore how to speak with empathy, set healthy boundaries, and truly connect with an addicted person in a way that encourages recovery instead of conflict. Because sometimes the right words said in the right way can make all the difference when speaking to a person struggling with addiction. The most important principle is to approach them with empathy rather than judgment. Addiction is often misunderstood by families, friends, and even society as a matter of weak character, lack of discipline, or deliberate irresponsibility. In reality, as medical science has shown, addiction is a disease of the brain that alters chemistry, weakens decision-making, and creates compulsive behaviors beyond simple willpower. When we keep this medical truth in mind, our approach changes. Instead of condemning the individual, we begin to see them as someone suffering from an illness who deserves care, support, and understanding. An empathetic approach begins with tone. The words we choose, the expressions on our face, and even our body language can either invite the person to open up or push them further into isolation. A judgmental tone, one filled with anger, accusations, or moral lectures, often makes the addicted person feel attacked and ashamed. In that state, they are more likely to become defensive, deny their problem, or retreat further into their addiction. Empathy, on the other hand, communicates safety. It tells the individual, "I may not agree with what you are doing, but I see your pain and I want to understand it." This safe environment is often the first step to breaking through denial. Empathy also means separating the person from the addiction. Too often, loved ones use labels like junkie, drunk, or failure, forgetting that the individual is not defined by their condition. A doctor would never call a patient cancer or diabetes, but rather recognize them as a person living with a disease. The same must apply here. By addressing the individual with respect, you remind them that they are more than their addiction and that their identity and worth still exist beyond their current struggle. Another element of empathy is patience. Recovery is not instant, and neither are conversations with someone who is addicted. They may deny, minimize, or avoid the truth repeatedly, but an empathetic communicator does not give up or lash out. Instead, they continue to offer gentle reminders, supportive listening, and consistent presence. Patience demonstrates commitment, which reassures the addicted person that they are not abandoned, even when they stumble. Practical empathy also involves trying to understand the root of the addiction. Many individuals turn to substances or behaviors because they are coping with deep emotional pain, trauma, loneliness, or stress. By asking open-ended questions such as "What are you feeling when you use?" or "What do you think helps you in that moment?" you allow them to reflect and share without fear of being condemned. This not only provides you with insight into their struggle, but also helps them feel validated and heard. Ultimately, approaching with empathy rather than judgment lays the foundation for meaningful communication and eventual recovery. It transforms the conversation from a battle into a partnership. When the addicted person feels that someone genuinely cares for their well-being without condemning them, they are more likely to listen, reflect, and take steps towards seeking help. This shift in approach is often the first and most crucial bridge to healing. When communicating with a person who is addicted, it is essential to use simple and direct language. Addiction alters not only the brain's reward system, but also its ability to process information clearly, especially during moments of stress or confrontation. Complex sentences, medical jargon, or emotionally charged speeches can easily overwhelm the individual, causing them to shut down, become defensive, or simply tune out the conversation. Clear communication means stripping away unnecessary complexity and focusing on language that is easy to understand, respectful, and straight to the point. One of the biggest mistakes families and friends make is speaking in long lectures filled with accusations or layered explanations. For example, telling someone, "You are destroying your health, your family, your career, and your future because you refuse to see the truth," may come from a place of concern, but it overwhelms the listener. The addicted person may hear only criticism, which increases feelings of shame, and shame often fuels the cycle of addiction. A more effective approach is to use brief, direct statements such as, "I am worried about your health," or "I care about you and want you to be safe." These phrases are less confrontational, easier to process, and more likely to keep the conversation open. Direct language also prevents misinterpretation. People in the grip of addiction often experience heightened sensitivity, defensiveness, and guilt. If your words are vague or indirect, they may interpret them in the worst possible way. For example, instead of saying, "Maybe you should think about changing your lifestyle," which can sound dismissive or unclear, you might say, "I think getting help from a doctor could really support your recovery." The difference lies in clarity. One statement hints at a problem without naming it, while the other provides a concrete suggestion. Tone is equally important. Directness does not mean harshness. A calm, gentle tone reassures the listener that the message is rooted in care rather than anger. The goal is not to win an argument but to open a dialogue. Even when being straightforward, it is crucial to avoid words that sound like blame. Replacing "you need to stop ruining everything" with "I've noticed how hard things have been for you, and I want to help" keeps the language supportive while still clear. Consistency in communication also matters. If you say one thing in a moment of calm and another during an argument, the addicted person may feel confused or mistrustful. Keeping your words consistent, simple, and direct helps reinforce the seriousness of your concern. Repetition of simple, clear statements over time, such as "I care about you," or "I believe help can make a difference," builds trust and reinforces the message without overwhelming the individual. Ultimately, using simple and direct language respects the reality that the addicted brain struggles with clarity, focus, and emotional regulation. By removing unnecessary complexity, you make it easier for the person to hear your concern, understand your message, and feel safe enough to respond. This approach strengthens communication and increases the likelihood that the conversation will lead to openness, reflection, and eventually, a willingness to seek help. Listening actively and patiently is one of the most powerful tools when communicating with a person struggling with addiction. Often, families and friends feel a strong urge to talk, to persuade, or to lecture, believing that if they say the right words, the addicted person will suddenly change. However, addiction is not simply a matter of hearing advice. It is an illness that clouds judgment and creates defensiveness. What the individual often needs most is not another argument, but a space where they feel genuinely heard and understood. Active listening provides that space and can open the door to deeper trust and eventual recovery. Active listening means focusing completely on what the other person is saying rather than preparing your response or rushing to correct them. It involves maintaining eye contact, nodding, and using short affirmations like "I see" or "I understand" to show that you are engaged. This technique communicates respect and validates the person's feelings, even if you do not agree with their choices. For someone battling addiction, who may already feel judged or rejected by society, this validation can be incredibly meaningful. It tells them that their voice matters and that they are more than their condition. Patience is equally critical. An addicted person may take a long time to express themselves or may circle around their feelings without being direct. They may deny the severity of their problem or blame external factors. The instinct may be to interrupt, correct, or argue, but doing so often shuts down the conversation. Patient listening allows them to work through their thoughts at their own pace. Even when their words seem illogical or filled with excuses, listening without immediate judgment keeps the lines of communication open. Over time, This patience can help the individual lower their defenses and begin to reflect more honestly. Active listening also requires noticing what is unsaid. Addiction often comes with deep shame and fear, and the person may avoid speaking about their true struggles. By observing their body language, tone, and emotions, you may pick up on feelings they are not putting into words. A gentle reflection such as, "It sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed," can encourage them to open up further. This demonstrates empathy and shows that you are not just hearing words but also understanding their pain. Another important aspect is resisting the urge to immediately offer solutions. While it may feel natural to suggest treatment options or lifestyle changes, jumping too quickly into problem solving can make the person feel pressured or unheard. Instead, allowing them to share fully before offering guidance respects their autonomy. Once they feel heard, they may be more receptive to suggestions for help. Ultimately, listening actively and patiently transforms communication from confrontation into collaboration. It shifts the focus from pushing the person toward change to walking alongside them as they consider it. This kind of communication builds trust, lowers defensiveness, and reinforces the idea that recovery is not something they have to face alone. By listening more and speaking less, you create the conditions for the addicted person to begin acknowledging their struggle and, in time, seeking the help they need. Setting boundaries with compassion is one of the most challenging yet essential parts of communicating with a person who is addicted. Families and friends often struggle between two extremes, either being too harsh and cutting the person off completely, or being too lenient and enabling harmful behaviors. Both approaches can be damaging. A doctor's perspective emphasizes balance. Boundaries must be clear and firm to protect both the addicted person and their loved ones, but they must also be delivered with compassion to avoid pushing the individual into deeper isolation or despair. Boundaries serve a medical and psychological purpose. Addiction thrives in environments where destructive behavior is ignored, excused, or covered up. For example, if a family member constantly pays the addicted person's debts, lies to cover their absences, or tolerates substance use in the home, the brain of the addicted person learns that there are no consequences to their actions. This unintentionally strengthens the addiction because the individual does not face the natural outcomes of their choices. By setting boundaries, such as refusing to provide money, insisting that substance use is not allowed at home, or declining to cover up mistakes, the family helps disrupt this cycle. However, the key is that these boundaries should not be delivered in anger or cruelty, but in a calm, caring, and consistent manner. Compassion in boundary setting means making it clear that the intention is not punishment but protection. For instance, saying, "I cannot give you money because I am worried it will feed your addiction, but I am willing to help you find treatment," is a compassionate boundary. It communicates both love and firmness. The addicted person hears that support is available, but only in a direction that leads toward recovery, not further harm. This avoids the trap of enabling while still maintaining the relationship. It is also important that boundaries are realistic and consistent. Setting rules that cannot be maintained, such as threatening to completely sever all ties after one mistake, may create fear but not sustainable change. Instead, boundaries should reflect what is genuinely necessary and possible. For example, a parent may decide that their adult child cannot live at home if they continue to use drugs, but they can still agree to maintain regular communication and support treatment efforts. This consistency reassures the addicted person that love remains, even when limits are enforced. Boundaries also protect the mental health of family members. Addiction does not only damage the individual, but also exhausts and traumatizes loved ones. By setting limits, family members avoid burnout, resentment, and emotional collapse. When delivered with compassion, boundaries become a form of self-care that models healthy relationships and reinforces the message that both parties deserve dignity and safety. Ultimately, Boundaries with compassion communicate two vital truths. The addiction will not be supported, but the person will not be abandoned. This approach avoids feeding denial while also avoiding rejection. It encourages accountability while maintaining a foundation of love. Over time, these boundaries can help the addicted person recognize the seriousness of their situation and move closer to seeking professional help. Compassion ensures the door to recovery remains open, while boundaries ensure that the destructive cycle is not allowed to continue unchecked. Addiction can steal voices, relationships, and futures, but clear, compassionate communication can help break the silence. If you know someone trapped in the cycle of drugs, pornography, gaming, or any other harmful habit, remember that your words can either wound or heal. Choose words that heal. Approach them with care, speak with clarity, listen with patience, and never stop encouraging them to seek help. Recovery is possible, and every supportive conversation brings that possibility closer. Together, by changing the way we communicate, we can stop these destructive cycles and give people the chance to reclaim their lives.